Welcome to Citizens Reunited to Overcome Cancer, a show to make your survivorship an easier journey by providing information and advocating for you. A show to help practitioners up their game and their level of performance. This is the Croc Podcast. Here is your host, Dr. E, and alongside him to share some hope and inspiration from the Have Faith, Let It Begin podcast, co-host Angel Santana.
Hello, everybody. This is Dr. Tommy Anelli here with another Croc Podcast. I am so happy that you guys have joined us today to hear a podcast that's very, very dear to my heart. Citizens Reunited to Overcome Cancer has been in the Hudson Valley for the last 20-something years, and we hope to be with you another 20-something years and 20 years after that. Angel Santana, I can't wait to talk to you about this podcast. How are you doing, my friend?
Hey, we are exactly, I don't even know, more than less than a week away from Christmas, and I'm excited. So I'm more excited because of the time of season we're in, but I'm just elite with joy because we, my friends, are celebrating another holiday together. So let's kick it off and make this Croc Nation feel the joy that we have and the ability to come together and share in this amazing conversation.
Well, thank you, Angel. I agree, and I'm grateful to you as well. And merry holidays. I guess I could say that without any political incorrectness to everybody out there, to all of our survivors, all of our care teams, all of our professionals, all of our families of survivors, which makes you survivors as well. You are more than welcome here. And as a matter of fact, we would be honored if you would listen to us today, as well as in the future, as well as in the past. We're going to be talking about something, as I mentioned, dear to my heart. And it's going to sound strange because the subject is how to break bad news to patients, but it's also uplifting because, I've taken this subject very seriously over the years and decades. And I've actually come up with my own brand, and I call it guarded optimism. And we're going to be talking about that. And that's something I believe survivors need for sure to help them in their journey through their survivorship and through their cancer journey. And basically, if you think about it, bad news, cancer is bad news. And how to manage the dissemination of information with that bad news, because let's face it, breaking bad news is an area of expertise for our survivors. But sadly, breaking bad news is not an area of expertise for our care teams because, quite frankly, it is not fun. It is extraordinarily uncomfortable, and doctors do everything possible to avoid the subject of having to break bad news. So it's something that we have to hit straight up. And at the end of the podcast, what I hope is that not only will our practitioners be better at delivering bad news, but they will actually be able to practice my style of guarded optimism, which actually will make breaking bad news not such a chore. I have to tell you that on this podcast, Angel and I speak about guarded optimism, and we've sprinkled it throughout many, many podcasts. But I thought it would be, appropriate to actually have one podcast devoted strictly to guarded optimism. And I have to be honest with you, I've developed this connectivity and this very, very deep interest because it's such a part of our daily life as oncologists. So on today's podcast, Angel, we're going to be quoting and actually utilizing a study from Iran. I don't think I've ever actually read an article from one of the medical centers in Iran, and the name of the paper is Physician Skills in Breaking Bad News, and the primary author is a Dr. Nabi, and it's from the Department of Anesthesia, and it's an excellent article on how to help physicians break bad news to patients. And as I said to you before, breaking bad news is unpleasant. There's no way around that. And because of that, we do everything to avoid the process of extending that bad news to patients. And we don't want to do anything that's unpleasant. So what this paper does is it puts together a protocol called the SPIKES protocol, SPIKES. And we're going to be talking about that. And then we're going to segue from that into how we could even go one step further with my process of guarded optimism. So breaking bad news is defined as any news that negatively affects patients' view of their future. Now, in cancer, we all know that bad news is basically equivalent to the word cancer. If you get told you have cancer, that's kind of bad news. So really, it's a diagnosis of a lack of information or a lack of confidence that patient, that survivor, will ever even have a future. Number two, breaking bad news directly affects the severity of the patient's stress and anxiety. In addition, it affects the ability for them to have satisfactory coping mechanisms, and it will affect their health outcomes and their ultimate care. And it will not allow them to adapt and accept their diagnosis, and it will kind of keep them sort of stuck in place and not be able to move forward. And they'll be kind of stuck in that, we call it that cesspool, that mud, that's quicksand of hopelessness and despair. And if you really break bad news poorly, you can get a frustrated patient and survivor with a great deal of resistance as far as how it could affect their treatment process and how it could affect their overall health, not even their health related to their cancer. And as I said before, to the outcome of their ultimate outcome. And really the bottom line, Angel, is that the disclosure of a cancer diagnosis is very complex. There's a lot of moving parts. You have the medical factors. So we have all the body systems, right? We have the central nervous system. We have the lungs, the pulmonary system. We have the GI system. We have the head and neck system. We have just say 8 body systems where cancer can develop. So, but that doesn't mean that the medical factors are only confined to 8 different, subcategories. There's hundreds of subcategories within each of that subcategory. So literally, the medical complexities are almost infinite because each cancer survivor, their journey, their cancer, their disease is different than their next door neighbors. So this makes it a very difficult process and a very difficult conversation. In addition, everybody walks into the room with different cultures, different genders, different philosophies, different spiritual, foci, and not every patient has the capacity to metabolize a lot of the complex things that we're talking about. And even more importantly, many people don't have the willingness to be able to just emotionally be able to cope with even a discussion about their cancer or about their bad news. So really, it's a no-brainer. It's very simple. It's about creating a safe space. It's about involving community. And when I say community, the support system that the survivor has. It's about assessing the capacity and the willingness of the patient to discuss, their diagnosis and the news, and also the delivery of the news. You have to do it with respect and with empathy. So all of this comes into this algorithm called SPIKES. So SPIKES is a questionnaire, or it's really just a prompt. It's a 12-segment prompt divided into 6 sections. So the S stands for the setup. So when a patient comes in and you have to talk to them, do you talk to them in the hallway? Do you sit next to them in the waiting room where there's 80 different people who could hear you talk? Do you talk to them with the door open? Do you talk to them face to face, eye to eye? Are you looking at them? Are you at eye level? Are you looking at your computer? Are you looking at your iPhone? Are you looking at your watch? Are you putting them in a position where they have privacy? Did you invite if they came with family members that might want to be in there or they might want to have there to support them? Did you invite them into the room? Did you set them up? Is the setting appropriate for delivering this news? Then you have to be able to assess the perception. What is the patient's perception of what's going on? Hey guys, what did Dr. Smith say to you, about why you're coming to see me? And you can get a feel for how much they know and how much they don't know. That invitation, body language is everything, Angel. If a patient is going to be, have an openness, they're going to have an open body language. They're going to be inviting you to deliver that news. And you have to be able to take their pulse, their knowledge pulse, to be able to know how, confident, what you need to do. It is your job to deliver that information in a clear, with clarity and with precision, and they have to understand you. So you might have to have the same conversation 18 different times with 18 different people, but do each of them very differently. And then you have to be able to display emotion, to feel something, that you're just being the person telling this person a life-changing information. You better be very clear that that's something very, very deep, and you better feel that. And then the most important thing, I think, is that to bring it all around to the, full circle and talk about a strategy and a summary of what's going on and how you're going to deal with it. So, I am not a huge fan of academic algorithms, but I know they're necessary. These papers that we did discuss in our podcast are sort of a lattice or a skeleton or a scaffold for us to help us with the topics and give us sort of a way to derive or to disseminate this information to our survivors. So I know that this academic algorithm, how these papers present, are necessary, but I do want everyone to know that it is the Croc way to recognize that they're limited and they are very incomplete and they are very stiff. They're rigid, they're stiff, they're robotic, and they're vertical. They're 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. They're not horizontal. They're not circular. And we're going to talk about that in a second. And most importantly, they're without nuance. And there's no room to be spontaneous and no room to go off script. And I'm going to use as an analogy the National Cancer Consortium, the NCCN guidelines, where, when a patient comes in with a malignancy, you go to the NCCN guidelines and sort of a cookbook, a recipe book on, how many chocolate chips go into each chocolate chip cookie. And it's helpful for sure, but it's incomplete. It doesn't really give the full picture on how to best treat a patient. And I believe that the spikes protocol is very similar. Now, this spikes is wonderful. It's the setup, it's the perception, it's the invitation, it's the knowledge, it's the emotion, it's the strategy, and that's all wonderful. But I don't want our care teams to say, okay, Dr. Smith, cue up to express empathy. Okay, Dr. Smith, cue up to discuss strategy. It shouldn't be that way. It should be natural. It shouldn't be like coming in with a stiff white coat and going through a script like you're like reading for a part, in a play, at the Helen Hayes Theater. It should be something spontaneous. It should be more like, improv, more than just sort of a mnemonic, because, there is a history, of my development of this guarded optimism. This guarded optimism takes the Breaking Bad news, the spikes protocol, and takes it to a new level. It takes this algorithm that is the spikes protocol, and this is not a word, but it de-algorithmizes the algorithm. And it's not a mnemonic. Like, life is not a mnemonic where you could just kind of memorize or print it on a cheat sheet. And it's a life philosophy, that comes from your heart. It's nothing that comes from your head. It's not something on a piece of paper. It's not Cliff Notes. It's you interacting with a brother or a sister in life, right? Because everyone is our brother and our sister, whether we're related or we're not. So when you see a survivor for the first time, it's got to be circular. It not a square. A square is finite. It's got 4 points of interruption. It's got 4 points of resumption. A circle is continuous. It's without closure. There is no beginning. There's no end. It symbolizes infinity. When we get married, we have a wedding ring. This wedding ring represents that infinite love that we have for our partner. And so too should an interaction with a survivor be circular. And all 6 aspects of Spike need to be operative at all times. So it's not like the setting comes before the perception, which comes before the knowledge. It's all got to be moving and, together harmoniously. And yes, you have to have a sensitivity to the environment. You have to have a sensitivity to the privacy. You have to have a sense of community to advocate for your survivor. And really, it all starts with getting to know the person. Remember, hey, tell me a little bit about yourself. Tell me something I can't read in your chart. And this insight immediately allows you to see what level of perception and what type of, what level or depth of invitation are you going to get in order to discuss these difficult things, and also what depth of knowledge that our survivors might have. And emotion needs to be something that you don't just kind of put on when it's time to talk about, tough stuff. Like when you walk into your office in the morning after your first cup of coffee, your emotion gears have to get oiled up. You have to be ready for a day, because every time you walk in a door, every time you walk through that door into a room with a survivor, the emotion has to be there from the second you walk in and you say hello and you shake a hand or whatever you do, your introduction. Like emotion doesn't just, get turned on and off like a light switch. And really the summary and the strategy, that's the key, to this guarded optimism. So, we're always going to use sports analogies here on the Croc Podcast. And, I'm a sports fan. I'm specifically a big Mets fan. And in 1973, the Mets had a very good team. They were not the best team in baseball. They were probably maybe the 6th or 7th grade team. But they got to the World Series based on a philosophy that was exposed by the pitcher by the name of Tug McGraw. You probably know his son, Tim McGraw, who's a famous country western singer, but his father was Tug McGraw. He was a relief pitcher with the Mets. He wore number 45, and his war cry and mantra for the 1973 team was, "You gotta believe." And you gotta believe. And he got everyone, the team and the entire city, infected with this belief that they were to believe in themselves. And they got within one game of winning the World Series. They beat the Big Red Machine with Pete Rose and all those famous Hall of Fame players. And they had no business being on the field with the Reds, and they had no business being on the field with the Oakland A's with Reggie Jackson and all those other superstars. But they were, and not only were they on the field, they gave them everything they had, and they just about really almost won the World Series that year. So this whole "you gotta believe" thing, it's really the secret behind Breaking Bad News, and it's also the secret behind guarded optimism. And it's the secret of how you can go from a good oncologist to a great oncologist. And our survivors deserve for every one of their care team to be great, not just good. And you do have to believe in what you do. And you do have to believe that what you do works. So whether it be the surgery, whether it be the chemotherapy or the radiation, if that's what you're doing, you have to believe in it. And, you should have a body of experience of patients who have benefited from your modality. And you have to believe first and foremost, that cancer is a treatable disease. Let me repeat that. Cancer is a disease, just like any other disease, and it is as treatable as any other disease. It is special in many ways, and we talk about those special things on our podcast. Every time that you come to listen to our podcast, you'll hear the uniqueness of your journey. You have something that is treatable, and when something is treatable, there is hope, and that's what guarded optimism is. You have to stay steadfast to this belief until proven otherwise. And even then, even when a patient isn't doing well or as expected, you have to have your plan B, and you have to have your plan C, and you have to have your plan D. The most important thing is I don't want everyone out there to think that I'm absolutely out of my mind in the sense that I'm coming and telling everybody that, everyone's going to do great and everyone's going to be cured. It's nothing like that. Guarded optimism is never dishonest. Even in terminal cases, your optimism and hope is a life vest for patients who have no hope. And when other doctors go to our patients or survivors and scare them and shock them, just so they feel that they're not being in any danger of getting themselves legally liable for a lawsuit or a malpractice suit, what they don't realize is that they haven't done their patients any favors by taking that attitude. Because if guarded optimism is done correctly, you will hear this statement from your patients every day for your entire career. You're going to hear the words, "Doc, you told me the exact same news that Dr. X told me, but the way you said it, the way you live it, has made all the difference in the world. Whatever the future has in store for me, whether it be good or bad, I'll be ready for it. And for that, I'll always be thankful." Angel Santana, your thoughts about breaking bad news and guarded optimism?
My interpretation of what I heard about today's episode goes like this. So for anyone really receiving bad news today, especially news that may shake their world, bad news doesn't mean the end of their story. It means that the story has taken a turn that you didn't choose, but one that you can still face with courage. You don't have to be strong all at once. Strength doesn't mean you aren't scared. It means that you keep showing up. Even when your knees are shaking and your heart is heavy, some days, managing bad news means getting out of bed. Other days it means allowing yourself to cry. And some days it means daring to hope again. Cancer may try to define you, but it does not get the final word. You are more than that diagnosis, and you're more than that statistics. You are more than today's pain. Lean on others and ask for help. Rest when you need to. And remember this, even in the darkest moments, you're still here. And that means there's still purpose, still love, and still hope ahead. To the Croc Podcast and the family and the Croc Nation, keep roaring. And even wounded hearts can still be brave.
Angel, thank you for your words in closing. I'm going to end the podcast as I end all of our podcasts, and that's with our Croc blessing, wishing all of our cancer survivors a very long, healthy, happy, and cancer-free life. God bless you. God be with you. Peace.
Hey, Croc Nation, if today's message inspired you, please subscribe, download, and share this episode with your friends or someone who you believe needs it. Visit us at crocvip.com to connect, learn, and join the fight. Let's spread hope, one story at a time. Until next time, remember, we are not just a podcast, we are a movement.